So yeah, there are like, some questions directly towards Tim and, how can people using 3D printer. So you can see the question, Tim. Do you want to answer the question? From Andrew Bones.
Go first.
Sorry?
Did he say, shall I go first, did he say?
No, it's like, do you want to answer the question from Andrew? So how can we become part of Circular Plastic? I think at EcoBricks in Uganda, they have like quite similar project apparently there. So how can people join your project in terms of 3D?
Yeah, so so we've got the website. I think I've replied back in the chat, but yeah, the circularplastic.co is the website, and basically, yeah, or email me at t.whitehead@aston.ac.uk. Yeah, we're very keen for kind of partners or anybody who wants to be involved. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Tim, I have one question myself. I mean, it's a fantastic project, really. It cannot get any more exciting, I think. So at the moment, what you guys doing is like, for, sort of like, different problems, you kind of use this 3D printing and plastic base, and then you find these sort of innovative solutions, right? So is there any plan in terms of like, taking this from, I think, relatively low technology readiness level to a higher technology readiness level, so that it can have like, I don't know, it become kind of, how to say, a scalable solution that you can like, how to say, sell, like, or employ people, so people can rely on this solution in terms of their employability and so on.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's a good point. And where we're actually looking at this, so what we found through this initial kind of study was that 3D printing is great, but it's some of the products that we're getting from there, we need other materials. So we actually need to move to kind of a multi-material, and using 3D printing as one of the tools within a bigger toolbox of stuff to make stuff. And 3D printing is good for some applications, but not others. So actually what we're really looking at is kind of making like little maker hubs, kind of like, workshops in freight container type thing, little maker spaces, and actually really trying to look at how that could be more applicable. So these could drop into a region that's potentially quite remote, but it would have the connectivity to then actually provide local solutions, and things like refugee camps are quite a good example of upskilling or making specific items. So yes, that would be that's where we'd love to go. And I guess it's just, I think a lot of this is, isn't it? We've been talking about kind of education, building awareness. And I think there's a lot of that in here as well, is in not just making products, obviously circular economy, but also like the STEM education, the engineering, the able to make stuff for yourself.
Absolutely.
With the tools you have to hand. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. So I encourage everyone, whoever has questions, to post their question. The next question, I think it will be direct to Patrick and the Chatham House. So you did mention the sort of global trade of plastic waste, right? So at the moment, what we know is that like Africa is not necessarily a hub for plastic export of plastic from other countries, right? So do you see this from the point of view of your analysis of like, what are the technologies available, the possibility to generate, impact and value from this plastic waste, et cetera, et cetera? Do you see, a growing, how to say, export of plastic to Africa as an opportunity or as a threat? And I think I need a little bit more clarification on what I exactly mean. So probably over a decade ago, when you're talking about like some countries in Southeast Asia, they saw this plastic waste, import to their country as an opportunity. They say, well, we're gonna, we are going to add value from the recycling of it, et cetera, et cetera. And then 10 years, over a decade later, what we realize is that it actually cost a lot to their environment because of, for example, some people got like a license to import the plastic and said that, well, we're gonna, recycle them. But what happened in reality is that they just chuck it in the landfill, and not like, a sort of health and safety certified landfill, but just an illegal dump. And then you have the long-term problem of leaching of, toxic material to the environment and so on. So what do you think the situation in Africa will be if there's going to be more import?
It's very difficult question or complex question. So what we see internationally is with the amendment of the Basel Convention, actually. So on that level, there's a tightening of regulations on how plastics can be shipped internationally. So from that level, it's becoming more difficult. So, I mean, I think one reason why Africa hasn't been a major destination in the past, as some people have said, the reason why China became one was because there were a lot of goods being shipped from China to Europe to the US, and then there was lots of container space, which was basically free, and people thought about what can we do, and then it turned out that shipping plastic was a viable economic solution to fill that container space. But what's happened over the years, I think China realized that it only makes sense if you get high-grade plastics. And I think what increasingly happened was that plastic waste was contaminated or low-grade packaging, which couldn't be recycled and had then to be dumped, etc. Which I think has then led to the decision of banning the imports of plastic waste. And then what I think has then happened over the last couple of years, that a lot of the companies which have engaged in that trade then relocated to Southeast Asia. So I think it's often maybe the same operators, but they have changed the location to a different jurisdiction. And then we've seen the reports or the documentaries that have been shown here on the BBC, the plastic waste in Malaysia. Some people say it's an opportunity for local recycling industries to develop, and I'm a little bit more skeptical. I'd rather see plastic being collected and recycled locally rather than shipping it internationally. That's and I think overall regulation will go towards that that way. But it's a difficult issue to solve. And for example, we need to build recycling capacity. I mean, we need to build recycling capacity also in Europe and other places, not only in Africa. It's overall an issue.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for the response. So I think we have 2 more minutes, and if I want to ask one question, I mean, feel free, anyone on the panel as well, if they have any question, they can ask. My next question will be direct to Kotume. So we talk about, I mean, that was a very, very, I think, important topic that you talked about, and this is like gender equality when it comes to, dealing with plastic waste in Africa. What do you see as sort of how can we use digital innovation to address this, or to kind of close this gap of gender equality in dealing with the plastic waste? I mean, what would be our immediate kind of solution to this, or immediate field of research to address this, in your opinion, from your research?
I think it would be a question of, first of all, awareness, and then second, awareness from policymakers that helps to ensure that there is an understanding of the importance of technologies in order to sort of reduce the gender gap when it comes to the circular plastic economy. The reason why I say this is because technology is going to be very much used in meeting plastic waste. And if women, for instance, are left behind, do not necessarily understand the importance of the use of technologies, and perhaps not necessarily not understanding, but not having the capacity to be able to afford, access, and then know about these new and emerging technologies, then it's going to be very, very difficult, because as I indicated in the presentation, women main pickers of these particular plastics. So this makes more sense for them to be able to engage much more effectively with the use of digital innovation.
So okay, thanks very much for the response. Just conscious of time, so I think we are at the end of this session. Is there any question from our panelists? Is there anyone having any question from the others?
I mean, beyond the beyond the point that Dr. Kutuma has mentioned, I would say that it's been very obvious gender gap in terms of from the research area. Many of this research area, if I haven't done any research within Africa, but I have done a number of research within countries in South America. And there's a lot of disparity in terms of male to female. So trying to attract females to that area, to that field, will be very, very key, so that the ideas can come around in whatever we're trying to embed. So for instance, within a male and female use of mobile phone, for instance, I'm sure there will be a different usage statistics. And we can't know if we may not know if it's just been led by the male gender.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And I think Tim is, as he mentioned, like you need to like tackle this stuff in the STEM level, when they are very kid, try to motivate them that okay, you guys can be the sort of like the derivers of this digital innovation, so that it kind of like address the needs for both gender and so on. I think this early education is probably the most important thing that we often forget about their importance, and in terms of like addressing such questions. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, so if there is no other discussion, I would like to thank all of the presenters. It was like really diverse, very useful presentations, and I would like to thank all the listeners as well. So I think we have like a half an hour break now until our next session. So thanks very much, everyone, for tuning in and listening to our conversation.